am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected these answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose rapture. A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small, and with the sweat of your brow, rapture can become your city as well.
In other words, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fluffenhammer. Roll the music. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my little fluffers, or as you may call them some other places, you little Fluffenheimers. I, as always, am Adam, and I am here once more to hold your hand as we walk along the myriad paths of the internet, of the World Wide Webway, and talk about the worlds of Games Workshop. But I am not alone, and there is no George this week. Unfortunately, no. George tried to summon a greater demon and was once again made to be its king because he's George and he's probably ruling some version of the warp somewhere. So instead I've reached back into the World Wide Webway and said, you know something? There's a guy that I've wanted to talk to about the worlds of Games Workshop for quite some time, and we've never had a chance to get him on. And with that, may I introduce Adam White.
I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts.
Yeah, they are
Coconuts.
in a row.
Short ones, round ones, ones as big as your head. Sorry, I thought as you started in such a dramatic tone, there was no way I could follow that.
Oh, you could. Up above the streets and houses, rainbow flying high.
Don't, because we'll, you know.
It may be worth saying that me and Mr. White have both done a lot of audio work over the years. We worked together on the Death of Optimus Prime audio play, where Adam here played Optimus Prime, which isn't something that many people can say about their lives, is it?
It's not. It's also as well, didn't I do a scene, I think I recorded for you right at the last minute, that was 4 characters?
Yes.
In a scene together.
You did. You went
because I just jumped from one to the other. By the way, for those interested, my Optimus Prime was truly average and also very British, but not like aristocracy or well spoken. He just sounded like a slightly educated Birmingham person. Or should I say Brummy? Because Birmingham person sounds really nasty.
Ah, yes. The Birmingham person.
The Birmingham peoples are represented by the Birmingham robot, Optimus Prime. Hello. One shall stand, one shall fall.
I quite like the idea of a highly educated Optimus Prime, yeah. One shall stand, one shall fall. Why throw away your life so recklessly, Prime? Oh, that's a question you should ask yourself, Megatron.
It is over. Finished. Optimus Prime becomes the new voice of the trash heap. One shall stand, one shall fall. Yeah. Or, of course, then it takes his logical say, and Optimus Prime becomes Skeletor. Megatron!
And then you're only 3 steps away from making him into a Chicago gangster. I've always thought that Skeletor is only a couple of octaves away from being a Chicago gangster, you know. You'll never catch me, He-Man, Jay.
It's terrible, isn't it? Poor old Skeletor. He could rule the universe, but all people will ever do behind his back is go, why does he go behind it, like at the end of every sentence? It's almost like a slightly sinister sheep. There are the sheep. Look at them bleating in the field.
Are you saying that all sheep are actually the offspring of Skeletor?
I think, let's face it, in their heart of hearts, they know this. I'm so sorry. Now, normally it's you that derail my podcast. Yeah. Now I'm just completely screwing over yours.
Oh, this is awesome. It's absolutely fine. Oh, there's nothing quite like a good giggle at 9:30 in the morning.
Well, it is your fault, because I haven't done a podcast in years.
No?
I mean, literal years. No, I mean, I think the last thing must have been... I don't even know if I might have done one show in conjunction with TF Nation last year. But,
yeah.
You know, and in turn, that was it. But I've not really done a group podcast. So thank you for inviting me on. I've come out of retirement.
Well, I mean, we've worked together on multiple things in the past. You've been on multiple of the old lock-ins that I used to do. You've been on the Iacon 101 at least once, maybe twice.
Just the once.
Was it just the once?
I got so much bad feelings off my chest, and there'll be a few of those things today actually regarding the world of 40k. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of little things I want to put out there just to see if I'm the only person annoyed by this or not.
Okay.
But yeah, apart from that, it's been difficult because as people at home might realise, when you do voice work, it can sometimes have side effects on you, and I think that doing a lot of the voice work, especially the stuff with Riveted, actually caused me to have a few health issues that I have to this day.
Yeah.
So it's very, very difficult for me to jump back in and do voice work. Plus, as well, I've moved around. I think I've moved house around 15 times since we last spoke. And when we last spoke a month ago, so it's been, a pretty average month for me.
I was going to say, I believe you when you say 15 times. The world has a tendency to give you a damn good kicking when you least expect it. And then
yeah, exactly. And also, of course, then this small thing called TF Nation came up, and that was it.
Aye. So, for those of you out there who are unaware, TF Nation is a giant Transformers convention based in the UK. Both myself and Mr. White do work for that. White does a lot more than I do. A lot more.
And yet I still do less than people like Billy and Andy Turnbull and some of the other people.
Also, me and Mr. White have worked together on one of my many projects on Riveted Sounds, which is my audiobook and audio producing company. We've done a fair bit on that, which I will give you links for that later on. Let's not start shilly-shallying around all the various plugs just yet.
Let's talk 40k.
So, as I always do when I have a guest on, I've got a question. And that question is written in monolithic slab, based around the unseen city. And that question is, Mr. White. I don't start every question with Mr. White. It's just you, because you are Mr. White.
I think that would be brilliant.
I might just start doing that, actually, yeah. Whenever we put somebody in, Mr. White! What is your journey through the worlds of Games Workshop? What is your experiences? What is your story?
Okay, so my story with 40k and the universe is pretty much the same with Transformers. People know me from Transformers will know that I don't really collect the toys. I don't collect the physical stuff, but I love the lore. Now, when I first became aware of 40k, I think I've got more in common with the layman. Oh my goodness, I'm now breaking completely from the script because a magpie a magpie is 2 foot away from me, just staring at me through my window. Good morning, Captain. I really hope, Gruffy, this isn't an ill omen of things to come.
Well, hang on.
Anyway, where were we, people? We'll let Adam have his moment off mic. So anyway, I discovered 40K in the way that I think a lot of people do, which is that you just start seeing these crates, these mountains of old lead figures or plastic figures, and they look like kind of American footballers crossed with Mad Max, and you start to hear about people who play with these things. That's how I did. But the people that were involved in it when I was growing up were actually loners. They were people that didn't mix. They weren't anything like the sort of community that you have today and the people that I know that play the community. They were very much in it for they wanted to paint stuff, but they didn't actually play the game. Now, at that point, I was doing a lot of RPG stuff. Me and my friends really got into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role-playing books. Now, people that aren't aware of those, okay, forget any assumptions about the cartoon. These books are beautiful, like to the point where I'm seriously tempted to pick them up just for lore purposes, because they had so much imagination. So compared to that, 40K was kind of a backseat. But as I got older and I developed more and more interest in the lore side of things, so as my friends were getting computer games, I was the one reading the booklets. As my friends developed collections of Transformers or other toys, I went back and read the comics or read the wiki or all of this stuff. So when it came to 40K, the game didn't ever appeal to me. The figures didn't really appeal to me, but the massive lore did. And this huge overarching tragedy of a human civilization getting so close to perfection and then destroying itself. And this ongoing battle, and the fact that it is bleak, and the fact that it's essentially a sort of Lovecraftian, you're going to lose, you're going to die, this is the end, but we're just kind of dragging it out for a bit more, we're fighting back against impossible odds. That there aren't that many heroes, and even the heroes, you realize most of them aren't, or they work for an organization that's so corrupt. So I would devour the wiki and I would look at all these things, and it's slowly progressed from there, really. For a long time I struggled, you think, with all that lore and the interest in it, that I would just devour all the books. But I find the books are really heavy going most of the time, simply because they struggle with a lack of focus, I think. I've seen many people, talk wonderfully about the codexes and other reference books. Well, they're not novels; they're pure information. But that's actually a nice way to look up stuff, and it can be fascinating, and it can have snippets, let's face it, of fiction in there. But the books mostly are very, very dry. The exceptions being The Flight of the Eisenstein, which I think is a beautiful book that really does achieve, I think, is the perfect book for people to get involved in. And then there's Mr. Kane. So I discovered now, for people who don't know, I have a bit of a impediment when it comes to this guy, because I call him Ceaphras. Now, I know that's wrong. That's like me calling G-Axis Jahaxis. If you want to rage at me, you can. I don't give a shit anymore. But I believe it's Caiaphas Cain, Hero of the Empire. Very much a Flashheart character, a character that knowingly nods through the medium of the text to the reader, going, hey, by the way, I was actually trying to run away, but I ran into the baddie and I killed them, and they become an even bigger hero for doing that. And it's funny and it's engaging, and the whole Arcane series has a wonderful way of making the Warhammer world sort of very immersive. So I've lapped that up. So my journey with 40k is now that it gets to the point that, say, it's like your friend of mine, Stu Murray.
Oh, yes.
He's currently on Instagram. He's currently painting up a lot of Nurgle stuff.
He is, yes. Beautifully.
Now,
Beautifully.
I can appreciate the beauty in the work. I can. And I can appreciate the time, and I can appreciate the sculpting. Does seeing that figure appeal to me? No. Does it make me want to play the game? No. Do I look up the wiki, though, to read about that? Yes. Every single time I read up because I'm fascinated by how it all plugs in together. And then going through last year I started to notice the changes that were happening at Games Workshop, and then started to notice how they were affecting things like the share price.
Yes. Now, this is why one of the reasons I've been wanting to get you on, because the background that you come from is a lot more, should we say, business-based, and leave it at that.
Oh, it's all over the place. But yeah, I work for an investment bank.
Okay.
Now, trust me, that's like saying that you work for a supermarket. If you work for a supermarket, you could be stacking shelves, you could be organizing the warehouse and the deliveries, you could be sorting the cash, you could be dealing with legal documents, you could be corporate speak. There's a whole range of jobs there. So saying I work for a bank, trust me, doesn't put me in any foxhole, but it does mean that I'm used to looking at a bit of information about a company. And people might not realize this, but Games Workshop was the top performing share last year across the FTSE and AIM. It tripled in price throughout the year. That's a big deal. And I know people listening to this are like, yeah, but that's money. What does that mean? That means that if you think, GameShop is doing well, it feels like there are more people getting involved. Damn right, there are a lot more people getting involved. And it's being reflected in the company and where it's going. There is a lot more money going into Games Workshop. So that's why I think they're structuring stuff so carefully, and it's coming out now. I think over the next few years, I think it's going to be fascinating to see where they go. And especially with let's face it, other toy lines struggling, and the likes of Toys R Us going under. Yeah. You have a game system, and yes, I know let's face it, it's a thing for all ages, but Games Workshop are really well placed now. They've never been in a better position. And now they're coming back as well and rolling more stuff with the Primarchs, which is something that people have wanted for ages. Yes. And we're actually getting a kind of, it's almost like a slow return to the Horus Heresy era, the cast list. This is fantastic. People were, I know the Ultramarines have, I think, a pretty low standing in some people's eyes. So what do Games Workshop do? Well, they take their Primarch and they make him the ultimate tragic figure, because he now returns to a universe that he doesn't even recognize. He doesn't even recognize his own side anymore. So suddenly, he's gone from being the ultimate jerk to being kind of a guy that you would feel sorry for and want to genuinely root for. Meanwhile, out of the warp, you've got some of the nicest, juiciest characters coming out who are super powered, and it's like the return of all the good stuff. It's like Christmas for people who like Chaos. And let's face it, Chaos has been so under-supported over the last decade. This is great for them.
Oh God, yeah.
So it's an incredible time, and they're rolling out more stuff. So I'm just fascinated to see where it goes. That was one question, Gruffy, and I pretty much covered a hell of a lot. So good luck with question number 2.
Well, that is the first question. It's the launch pad for discussion. No. I'm going to go back to a couple of things that you've said. First of all, let's talk about rebooting Girly Man for a little moment. There is a small chance in the fluff that he has switched the Emperor off. No one has come forward and said he has. No one has come forward and said he hasn't. But there is a small chance that he has gone, and you're dead. And he's now taking over. And that is something that, if that's something that's happened, that is something we'll find out in a good couple of years' time. Because the interesting thing about the way that 8th edition 40k works is, much like Age of Sigmar, there isn't going to be a 9th edition. Well, the plan is to not have a 9th edition, but to have 8th edition being a living, breathing document that is going to continuously evolve and build with the chapter-approved books.
Yeah.
So it's going to constantly adapt itself to feedback, which is one of the more fascinating things, because as far as I'm aware, this is something that's not ever happened before within the tabletop genre. And it's leading Games Workshop back into being pioneers, something they haven't been for a long, long time.
Yep.
We're going to come back to the financial state of Games Workshop shortly, but I think it's worth saying that I don't think people realise how close Games Workshop came to being done.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I say, I'm looking at this from a layman's point of view, but then how many people here were genuinely interested in what Games Workshop were doing 5 years ago?
I wasn't. I was out. I was well and truly out. I had no interest of coming back.
And that's the thing, is that they've really re-energized their world, what they do. I think the only thing that they have to tackle now is, if the profits are up, they need to start looking at, I mean, they've already started it with some of the cheaper sets, but really pushing those prices down.
Yeah.
And making it affordable to jump in, and for it to be a hobby for younger players, because otherwise it runs the risk of being adults only.
Yes, which is where it was for a long, long time. The entire idea was that you got people in, sold them their first starter set, and then didn't care too much about what happened afterwards, because the starter sets were so expensive. Nowadays, whilst the prices haven't really come down I mean, they have in some ways, but across the board, it's still not a cheap hobby, I think is the best way of putting it.
Yeah. But
the entry level is so much better than it used to be. You get more for your money rather than it becoming cheaper.
Yeah.
Looking back at, I'm trying to think of something from about 5-6 years ago. Your average regiment sets, they have exploded. You get so much more in those boxes now than you used to. In a lot of cases, especially with something like the Sylvaneth, you buy a box and you've got 3 choices of what you want to build.
Yeah.
Rather than it being almost Monopole's multi-kits, where it's like, oh, you can have this sword or this sword. Nowadays, well, you could build these troops, you could build these troops, or you could build these troops. Why have I got all this stuff left over? Customize away, my friend. Customize away. And that, I think, is where one of the strengths of modern Games Workshop's coming from. It's allowing you the freedom of choice. And it's creating a lot of... And it's not just within the physical miniatures either. Within the fluff, within the way that the games are set. It's, here is a tool set. Use as much of it as you want. Go ahead, do what you will. Compare that to the last edition of 40k, where unless you had bought the latest, biggest thing, you were going to lose. And it wasn't fun.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, it's weird as well, because you look at... sorry, pardon me. You look at the last edition of 40k, and in many ways it was like a mobile game.
It was pay to win.
It was a pay to win economy. And all it ever did, just like a mobile game, is, it wanted your input every so often, but the input was then laced with well, that's good, but you want to buy this. That's good, but you should buy this. Whereas now it's the case of, look at the ideas we're doing. Oh, there are some payment options there as well. Look at how we've changed the board. Look at how we've changed the character. Guess what? You still play what you're playing, but now if you play Ultramarines, there's a whole different context to the way that you fight chaos. And the thing is as well, it won't actually change the stats in the game unless you use some of these new characters. But just the whole idea behind you. If you're an Ultramarines fan, what does that group mean to you?
Yeah.
So much more. And yeah, you're right as well. It's great. The more options, more customization. It means you're adding play value. And think about it. How often you talk about play value in regards to 40k figures? No. You don't, because they're mini sculptures and you paint them. Yes, but there's play value there. And Games Workshop have realized this. They've realized it doesn't cost any more or any less to add play value to a sculpt kit. Okay? But what it does give you is it gives the person who's building that kit the option to be individual, to choose their own type of character. And if they're more invested in the characters, they'll be more invested in the game, they'll be more prepared to pay the money.
I'm going to try my best to make sure that this doesn't go as dry as it might, but over the years I've interviewed and talked to a lot of people who have got things to do with tooling and how to create action figures. Because that's where I was for many, many years. I was an action figures guy, lots of toys guy, and I've talked to a load of people within the industry.
Yeah.
Tooling is massively expensive, right? I'm going to put that down. What Games Workshop have done, and they've done it very smartly, is that they've moved to 3D modeling. And 3D modeling means that you can create the prototype through 3D printing.
Yep.
That drops down a lot of upfront costs, and it allows you to add more to the sprues. I'm not saying it's the right choice, I'm not saying it's the wrong choice, I'm simply saying that's how it stands. And as time goes on, more and more people are learning how to 3D model, and it is really quite interesting to see what's been coming out.
Yeah.
A good example of this is the Necromunda box set, which I recently got. So Necromunda was 70 quid. I think about that anyhow. And I bought it 2 weeks ago, right? I may not have got a game in yet. I am still working on the first gang, my Goliaths, because the amount of stuff that's on the sprue and the amount of work that I've put into building these Goliaths, I am now probably at about 40 hours already. And that's not even starting on the second gang, that's not even starting on the actual play in the game. You compare that to where we both were a couple of years ago with buying action figures. You spend 70 quid on an action figure, how much time per pound do you get with that action figure?
Oh, it was ludicrously small, and that's the reason why I just don't buy action figures now, because I don't see that value. But you see the amount of work. I mean, so you said 40 hours, so suddenly that investment, that financial investment, that's worked out really, really well. Because say you're still building, you've then got, if you wanted to paint, or if you wanted to add effects, or if you wanted to further customize it, I mean, that could go on for a huge length of time. And it's great, because the end results as well, people put more passion into it. So you'll see the pictures of them will look more impressive. People will be more excited about what they do. So it in turn will get other people involved. People wonder why Game Shop is doing so well. Is it because of the new direction? Yes and no. Is it because of the choices that were made at the company? Yes and no. Is it because of the reaction of fans, existing fans? Is it getting other people to go, oh, why are they getting so excited? Absolutely yes. You can track the growth of interest in 40k through social media. It's like a plague. Nurgle would be so proud. It's you see literally 2 or 3 people going, wow, that's really good. Wow, that's really good. Wow, that's really good. Someone else goes, oh, why are you saying it's really good? Oh, maybe I should give it a go. And then that's it. That's the next thing you know, they're kind of drowning in Nurgle and cursing the day that they got back into this hobby. But that's the way it should be. A strong word of mouth, really propelling this thing forward. So it's great.
Well, this feels to me like a extension of where Games Workshop was in the early 90s, which is up until recently is my golden age of Games Workshop, where people would be shuffling copies of White Dwarf around the schoolyard, where people would be like reading the Ravening Hordes armies, because codexes and Warhammer armies didn't exist at that point.
Yeah, true.
You know, it feels like that again, where you go into the store. I mean, granted, at that point, the closest store I had it wouldn't have been Newcastle, it would have been Glasgow. You could go in.
Bloody hell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got to remember the early 90s explosion of Games Workshop was gigantic.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point where for a year, me, my mum and my brother went up and down the country, well, not up and down the country, up and down the north, going to different openings of stores. I think we must have hit about 7 or 8 in the space of a year, which may not sound like much, but when you think about the expansion of a business, that's a lot. And
you also think about you think how many toy shops, how many chain toy shops we even have now.
Yes.
And the fact that in the 90s toy shops were dying. And sorry, I know, Games Workshop people out there, I know you're going to say it's not a toy, it's not a game, it's a whole universe. It is, but at the same time, there is a toy element to it.
Of course there is. The little plastic men that you push around a table.
And the fact that this has still survived. I mean, let's say that you had this explosion, then you had this stagnation for so long, and now it's growing. And you think, wow, this is it's never been so good.
No, it hasn't. The mixture of how Games Workshop has exploded and how the rest of the world has got the butterfly net out and started catching that explosion, it's really interesting to me. I'm still trying to work out, is it all one-sided? Is it all because Games Workshop has got its act together at long last and started to produce what people wanted and reignite the interest? I mean, it baffles my head to think that 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there was no Facebook footprint for Games Workshop. They didn't have anything. They had no social media. That to me is one of the weirdest things. It reminds me, and I know I keep going back to it, but it's because me and Mr. White have spent a lot of time within the Transformers community. It's like going back to Hasbro at the turn of the decade, so sort of 2010, 2011, where you're watching Hasbro and going, who is running this company? Because they don't seem to understand how the internet works.
I'd have to say there's still I'd say, got to be careful here, but I would say there's still an element of that. I think it's not knowing your audience. It's not knowing how your audience appreciates its media. It's not listening to an audience. It's what else? And these are other things that you can apply to Games Workshop.
Of course, you can apply them to a 1,000 businesses.
Games Workshop, rolling out an idea that does sell well because it might be the only product at the time, then declaring it a massive success and completely ignoring the huge howls of protest from large chunks of, the audience, and then that whole line or that whole concept is just being ignored. Machinima animation for Transformers is a good example. It doesn't matter how popular something is, if it's not good quality, it will have no staying power, it will evaporate. So you will get a brief burst of sale, and maybe a small amount of cash injection, but you're not going to get anything that grows the business and grows the lore. And I know that sounds very, very cold out there, and I should be talking about the lore and the characters, but the fact is that you build franchises and universes off a lot of business decisions, and once you've got those business decisions sorted, you find that you have more money to play with, so you can do more building, and you can do a lot more of the funky stuff because you can afford to. Games Workshop over the last couple of years has made a lot of good decisions to get itself to the point where it's now business is booming and they're making money, and they're plowing that back into new things. Social media as well is one of the things that they're doing. They're also sort of very, very tight on their presentation now. So you and I have spoken about the way that they've been rolling out. They were rolling out a series of articles written in the form of propaganda.
Yes, the the guardsman.
Yeah. Now that's a beautifully simple way of releasing information and getting people involved, and people will appreciate that because it's in universe. They get the joke.
Yeah.
It's a Marvel movie, folks, because you're playing a Marvel movie to people who go to Marvel movies. They sit there and they go, "Hey, this is aimed at me.
Yes.
Don't care if you hate it. I'm turning up. I'm supporting this. And by the way, even if this Marvel movie isn't good, I've stuck with them for so long that I'm giving them a free pass."
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that Games Workshop is doing bad stuff with those releases. They're not. They're doing good stuff. But because it's the joke, because you're in on it, you support it more.
Yes.
You play up to it. It's all good. Now, of course, the one thing that they've had over the last couple of years is the issues with Warhammer Fantasy. And the way they redid that. Now, of course, that was a very polarized, and I was to say polarizing because I've seen positives and negatives, and I've seen as well some of the negatives come from people who are so ingrained in what they like and what they don't, and their views on just stuff in general just seem to be very, very fixed. But it's like, well, okay, they rode that storm out, they did it. So now they go from there, and hopefully they'll keep going. But it's definitely the 40k universe, which, let's be honest, is really the thing driving everything because it's become so nuanced so quickly.
Well,
I can't wait to see what they do.
40k is a strange one because it's built on the back of Warhammer Fantasy, and the evolution of it has become, because it very much is high fantasy in space. Yeah, no matter how you dice it down, it's not true sci-fi as such. It is high fantasy in space. What 8th has done is actually turned it into sci-fi.
Yep.
A lot of the fantasy trappings have been unshackled and let free to fly, whilst the sci-fi elements are being brought more to the fore. And it's a weird one to say, but it's down to the terminology as well. The stuff like the Eldar becoming the Eldari, they're trying to get them as far away from the elves in space as physically possible, and they've been doing it for a decade. But this is the thing that's worked: the Drukhari instead of the Dark Eldar, all that type of thing. The Yanari, the Cult of Death, and it's the Orcs have become very much their own thing, and people who don't even know anything about Space Marines, they know about 40k Orcs because 40k Orcs have taken on a life of their own and become a full-blown internet sensation. And the current version of Orcs seems to be getting away from the jokey Orcs that they were in the last rendition, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, the games as well, it was kind of like, Umis! And it was like, it's great, but remember, a single full-sized Orc would rip a squad of Imperial Guard to pieces. Okay, they're not. I'm sorry, they're not like a Camp 60s Batman villain where they just, they do that, or going back, they don't go, "Meh, He-Man." They don't, and you need to realize that they are vicious creatures and they are a danger to the universe. And it's great. You give them that power as well. And again, Orc fans who have always been anyway quite insular in the sense that they have their own terms, they have their own jokes, they have their own communities. Orc fans are for Orc people. And it's really, I think, propelled them forward as well. It's doing justice to every group.
Yes.
Like, for instance, Necrons. Really like the idea behind the Necrons. Can't wait for them to flesh it out a little bit more. It's going to happen, though. It's going to happen with the way that the company is running. They are going to find extra elements. The Tau. The Tau is another great example. The Tau has always been on the cusp of really just going for it. It's always kind of held itself back, maybe because it didn't want to appear too similar to other franchises or other types of lines out there. It didn't want to be seen as a knockoff. But again, it's pushing itself forward. So, I think it's explosion across the board. Really.
What I will say is that the new Necron Codex came out last month.
Yes.
Oh, it's good. It's very good.
Is Is it because I read out a lot of this stuff through wiki articles and through YouTube, but are they going to play more off their origins as well, and the fact that fantastic, that's good. So because I like the idea as well of them, because if they are purely robotic, then it's nice to have them there. But I think most franchises have realized now that if you have a character that is only evil, there's only so much moustache twirling you can do. And if they are only just singularly driven, again, there's only so much you can do. But if there is an element of conflict, or if there's an element of emotion in there somewhere along the line, especially regret, because let's face it, a lot of the Necron is based on a huge mistake. To bring some of that back adds a huge element. And the idea of a civil war coming up, which would be great.
But one of the things I really love about the current Necron Codex is that different dynasties of Necrontyr are starting to awaken. And depending on things like where the tombs were buried, how long they've been in stasis, all that type of thing, there's different degradations in their mentalities coming out.
Ooh.
So there's a Necrontyr dynasty out there that doesn't believe that it's robotic. They believe that they are still flesh and blood, and they they see reflections of themselves and well, that's not me. Dink, 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 dink. They're completely shut off from the idea that they are trapped in these metal bodies, and they are quite insane, and I love it.
Have you got any? I know it sounds odd, but have you got any? No, you're never going to get good Necrons, but have you got any anti-hero? Have they pushed it that far yet?
There's Tzeentch the Infinite, who is as close as you're going to get to a completely lawful good Necron. He wanders around, he does various things that seem weird. He was there at the fall of Cadia, helping people get off Cadia. He has a zoo full of all these weird little things from dead worlds. Including a clone of a Primarch.
Hang on, which one?
I think it's Logar.
Oh my God! He had because there were. Sorry, because Because Logar had like countless clones made of it, didn't he? Because he was trying to be turned.
Yeah.
How the hell did one get away?
I can't remember the full story of it. George was telling me about it last episode, and I'm trying to remember it, but I can't quite. So I might have it wrong. But anyhow, basically, Tzeentch the Infinite is an absolute legend. He is wonderful in his various bits of doddering weirdness. As I say, he just wanders around the universe like do. He switched on all the Cadian pylons. Didn't know what was going to happen. Just click. The guy is absolutely fantastic.
Love it.
There's a few others as well. I'm struggling to remember them off the top of my head, but just have a look at some of the Necron characters on a 40k wiki, and or go on 1D4chan if you really want to have a laugh. Because as much as 1D4chan gets a little internety,
yes.
There is a host of information, and sometimes it is really worth a laugh. The description of Nagash alone is wonderful.
There's one thing I won't be doing, and it's my pet hate at the moment. And a lot of it is actually crystallized again by someone we both know, and that's Chris McFeely. Now, Chris McFeely does something for the Transformers at the moment on YouTube. If you haven't seen this, please check it out. He does basics guides to characters. Now, Chris writes and inputs a lot into the wiki. So if anyone was going to utilize the wiki, it would be Chris. And Chris can do that because he creates it. It's kind of, it's the benefit of being the author of this stuff. But he doesn't. Instead, he writes the script, he creates these wonderful little promos, these wonderful guides, and they are unique. They are not a copy and paste job. However, with 40k, oh my goodness, the amount of channels that are based on people going, What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Adam here, back at you once again for another 40k video, and this time we're gonna look at 30 facts about the Necrons. And it's like somebody is reading the wiki, whole chunks of it, verbatim, and that's good. I mean, look, it's nice, okay? If people don't want to read through it, I understand. It's nice to hear someone talk through it. But the amount of copying that goes on, when in fact it's great to hear, there's only a few channels that do it, proper interpretations of what people personally think about the characters. Oh gosh, what's his name? I want to say it's Luton. He did a guide to the entire history of the emperor and the kind of the universe as it stands, and it's a beautiful thing. And it doesn't. A lot of it is you can tell a lot of it is adapted from the wiki, but he's put a lot of work into making it its own thing. I love it. But yeah, other people they just copy and paste, and that's kind of sad because people don't. There's less people that explore the fiction in a creative way. And considering there's so much going on at the moment, so I might check out this 4chan as well, because that sounds like the sort of place where people do throw around ideas and really get into the lore side of it. Which is,
there is a lot of lore in 1D4chan. Just be aware of how internety it is, because it's very internety.
Hey, you've got people who post YouTube videos who are really well known in 40k circles, who constantly go on about. They use the word snowflake. Snowflake, by the way, which the meaning of which comes from Fight Club, and it's actually taking the piss out of people who think that using the word snowflake to kind of put down another group, it's actually a dig at them. So if you're using snowflake in a derogatory way, you're an idiot. And you're not really kind of understanding where terms come from. So it's like using a racist slur whilst you're then having a go at people who are prejudiced against others.
I try not to look too closely at these dark underbellies anymore because I can't deal with them.
Well, I like the fact as well that because 40k is growing so much and it's gaining a new modern audience. There's a massive old guard with 40k, and most of them are lovely. But you have got your G1ers, the equivalent of your G1ers. They're kind of being outnumbered by the new guys,
which is the way it needs to be.
And the new guys, which is the way it has to be. And so hopefully it will grow and it will expand, etc. The only thing, and please people at home, don't rail at me for this. The only thing I will say is I went into my local store, which is Manchester, the other week, and I just wanted to look at some of their audiobooks, which after seeing the price of them, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not taking a punt on that when it's that expensive. But the one thing I would say is that if you're going to a 40k store, presentation is everything. And when you walk in there and you're hit by the smell,
oh, that's not good.
There are all ages in here. Although they're limited, there were ladies in there, and from young girls to ladies playing the game, which is how it should be. You've got all ages, you've got all ethnicities, you've got all walks of life, clearly. But yeah, I'd say to everyone, if they could all up their game in the old presentation department, it would take away the stigma, I think, of some of those stores. Because whilst I was in there as well, and I was like, I saw at least like one set of parents come in with their kids, and they said, right, okay, you just go ahead and do that, I'll be outside, because they just couldn't stand the smell.
That's not good.
And the thing is as well, it's like a lot of fandoms, okay? Fandoms attract people anyway that might have challenges in the way that they interact with others. But it's like, maybe if there was sort of more of that kind of like rebranding, on the people that play the game, that might help as well. But there we go. I mean, of course, the smell could have been paint thinner for all I know, because I have... anyone who knows me knows that I spent so much time in dark rooms that I have virtually no sense of smell. So for me to smell anything means it must be quite bad.
I think...
I have, by the way, I've pissed off half the people listening to this show already.
Well, let's piss off the other half. So, no, I mean, at the end of the day, oh God, yes. I'm turning into my dad. Ooh, no. Right, back away from that one. Back away.
I will now answer the next question in the style of my father.
What I was aiming to say there, without using my dadisms, I'm getting old, I don't like it. No matter how you cut it, you see, unfortunately, now I've lost my train of thought because I said a dadism. No matter how you cut it, you have an opinion, and it is within your rights to say that opinion, and that is absolutely fine. I will not take that as opinion as fact, and I will argue that opinion if I feel it is deserving of an argument. Or, a conversation. I much prefer a conversation to an argument. They are much more interesting. And you're more likely to get something out of it. Just because you have that opinion doesn't mean that opinion is fact. It doesn't mean that it is correct throughout the board. This is an example that you have experienced, and that's fine. If people came at you and went, that's not true, that is also an opinion, and you can do that. That's absolutely fine. But if you're screaming and shouting, you're not going to get anywhere with it. So, if you've pissed anybody off, please come to me, have this discussion. That's fine. I don't mind. I enjoy discussion. I enjoy conversation. Conversation is an art that I thoroughly enjoy. If you come at me and you're screaming and shouting, then you're going to get ignored. Simple as, because there's no point. So, just a little prefix there, just in case anybody does take offence to what you've said.
Well, you think you were right in saying that. I think it was a wonderful thing to say. That, by the way, was twice the speed that my dad normally talks. And also, I dropped the Dorset accent by about half, because otherwise you never hear everything he says.
Right. So, as for God's sake, as the final part for this show, then.
By the way, I'm starting to see why you enjoyed derailing.
Oh, it's great fun, isn't it?
It's so much fun because I can sense the battle in you to continue on with the words that you need to say, and yet I'm deflecting you from your task purely through a Dorset accent.
Do you remember the bubble gun, Mr. White? Yes, the bubble gun. When you were trying one time to film a interview with me about a long gone convention, and I kept putting you off by having a little gun that shot bubbles. No,
I honestly don't.
I think there's footage of it somewhere.
Wow, I remember you hitting me in the head with a Thor hammer.
Yes, that is something that's happened.
That was the first time we met.
Probably.
Yeah. I can't remember the other times. No, because most of the other times are linked to podcasts. Mm-hmm. When you derailed my text, my script.
I'm good at
that. Not that I'm like ticking off a list that's 6 years old. Hey, this is for the Bayou Tapestry, bitch.
Hashtag Jazzmag.
Sorry, completely off topic. Somebody commented on one of our guests this year, and they because one of our guests obviously had something to do. Mr. Mike Collins had a lot to do with a certain Man of Iron story. Mm-hmm. I think it was Tricky actually who said on his podcast. He said, "I'd be really interested if somebody could show Mike Collins." The podcast episode, The Underbase, where they destroyed the Man of Iron, and they referred to Jazzmag in the woods, and just how he would react to this.
Oh, poor Jazzmag.
Poor Jazzmag.
He tried so hard.
He tries so hard. It's really a shame actually, because we could probably present this to Mike, but Mike has seen some stuff. He's done a lot of cons in the UK. He's dealt with worse than us.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
don't worry about it.
And everything we did on the Underbase was with love.
With love and with far too little sleep.
Don't be long. Anyhow, moving on. That's a very old joke. Nobody's going to remember it.
There's one person somewhere stifling a giggle. That's about it.
Margaret Scott. Anyhow, moving on quickly.
Yes.
So finally then, what is your... Actually, before we get onto that, do you have a Audible account?
No, I don't. So a lot of my sort of voiceover work just died a death. So last year, just over a year ago, at the end of start 2017, I had to move from Manchester, where I had a nice little rig set up, and go down south, and it meant I was unable to do a lot of the stuff that I was able to do up here. I've since moved back up. It's been a very traumatic year, and it looks like I might be moving back into that very same place in the next couple of months. So I will be starting with Audible and a few other things then.
Oh, what I was meaning there was the entirety of Games Workshop's audiobooks are now being released through Audible. So for $7.99 a month, you could pick up a audiobook each month.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's actually really good. If people haven't listened to them, the Games Workshop books are usually of a very, very high quality.
Very high.
I would say as well, I'd say The Flight of the Eisenstein is just beautifully done. Gruffy and I have talked a couple of times. There's a couple of voice actors who can just bring such gravitas to a particular role. And I mean, like the Kane audiobooks as well. Kane audiobooks are lovely, just because there's so much character there. And I've now forgotten the name of the guy. Is it Tony?
The only name that I'm remembering at the moment is Jonathan Keeble.
Oh yeah, I think it's Jonathan Keeble.
Jonathan Keeble, who's God, his velvety tones. Oh,
just incredible, because he gets the idea as well of because Kane is narrating as an old man. Okay, a lot of these stories. It's very weird for those who don't know. So the Kane books are. Right, they are Kane's memoirs, and they are edited by one of his few very, very close friends. And she is a person of high importance, but she's also as well a very sarcastic person. So she'll get in digs and she'll make edits, and she has her own low opinion of some of the characters or high opinion of others. And it's lovely because when you hear that then translated into audio format, you have Kane, being voiced as a very rich, old, aged voice, recounting stuff. For any fans there, think about your favourite cricket commentator. It's going to be along those lines. A very, very kind of a trusting narrator for you. But also then going through all these action sequences. And Keeble can then sort of easily kind of switch into a younger Kane voice for when Kane is talking back in the day, and as they go through all these events, and I just love them. I really do. That would be, I think, one of the main reasons I would jump on board with an account is to pick up that stuff, and to pick up those one or two really good that sink you into the mythology and leave you kind of wanting to know about individuals. And let's face it, you have I keep struggling over what I want to say, like Empire of Mankind,
Imperium.
I keep struggling over the. Thank you. How can I forget that when I'm talking about 40k? But the Imperium, the whole concept behind the Imperium is that you are replaceable.
yes.
That it doesn't matter how much of a hero you are, okay, you will die, you will be forgotten in the rush. There are very few true heroes. But good writing and good audiobooks make you believe in a single character. Make you believe in someone or something, and you want them to endure. So I want Kane to endure. He is not the. Let's face it. He is not the only hero of the Imperium. He is not the only commissar. There are several other commissars who are very well known in the Imperium, who are very, very different. You want them to endure. You want them to survive. That's fantastic. I just love it when they do that. So, yeah, very long-winded answer to that one. But, yeah, I would probably pick up a Spotify account because to get those good books. And the thing is, as well, they have insane levels of replayability.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because, I mean, Flight of the Eisenstein is, what, 6 hours?
Be about that time.
And it takes so many twists and turns.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, yeah.
Some of them get up to 9 hours, so...
That wouldn't surprise me at all. So, have they? By the
really
way,
good.
have they done Gilliman's kind of return? Have they done that as an audiobook yet?
A Dark Imperium.
Yeah.
I think it is actually. Yes.
Okay, that will definitely be, because also it's lovely when you ask a voice actor to voice either the Emperor, which has only happened once or twice, or Primarchs. And how they convey that weight, how they can convey that sense of responsibility, the fact that they are gods among men.
Yeah.
Just love it when they get it right. So,
I'm not going to sit here and tell you about a certain version of The Last Church where people said that they really enjoyed the version of the Emperor that was on that. I'm not going to talk about that at all. No.
I'll tell you what, if you don't talk about that, I won't talk about a mug of recap.
Okay, then we won't talk about either my reading of The Last Church, which has, I think it's about 1 million views at this point, and we won't talk about your reading of A Mug of Recap, which is pretty much about the same, actually. So, yeah, we'll...
No, it can't be. I don't even know where... I thought it had gone off YouTube. I don't think it even exists
No, it's
anymore.
on the Fluffenhammer YouTube site.
Oh, bless.
I kept it, yeah.
Oh.
I wasn't letting something like that vanish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone likes Jurgen. He's just so cool. But you can't say Jurgen. You have to say Jurgen. You have to really get in. Yeah, you have to really get into.
You need the jowls to wobble as you say it. Jurgen.
Yes.
So, I think with all that being said, it's we're going to start closing stuff down now. But I've got a few things to throw out into the wide world first. First up, we have announced the Fluffenhammer Meet 2018. The Fluffenhammer Meet 2018 will be taking in Nottingham on the 6th of October. Obviously, I'm going to be there on the Friday for a couple of drinkies beforehand, and I'll be leaving on the Sunday. So if people want to come down, give us a shout, let us know. Join the Facebook group, which you can find at facebook.com/Fluffenhammer. We are also on Discord. I'm going to put the Discord link in the show notes for this episode for anybody who doesn't want to be part of the group, but would like to be on Discord. The Patreon is hammering along quite nicely. We've just finished Crawlhammer X-Quest Season 1, and the next season of shows is going to be... we still don't have a full name for it, but it's going to be looking at the more genial aspects, the things that created Games Workshop going right back to the beginning. So the first episode is all about H.P. Lovecraft and how it connects to the 40k and Warhammer Fantasy universes. And I think that is everything. The YouTube has got lots of stuff going on. Malign Portents has taken a bit of a back step for a while because I can't physically keep up with it, so I'm having to rework how I'm going to do that. But on the other hand, we've just had Mapping the Mortal Realms, the Sylvaneth series happen. So that's come out and is kicking a boot, and there is going to be one for Necromunda in the non-too-distant future. And then we're going to go back to Suffer Not the Alien to Live and do the more of the in-universe various looks at the races as we go along. But this time around, we're going to start doing the Imperium of Man. So that's the plans for the next few months. There's loads going on. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. White.
I'm going to quickly jump in here and say a couple of things. Please, the links and stuff that Cruffy has just put out there, please check it out. Original content is always good. And also as well, if you like what you see and you want to get involved, here's a hint from somebody who's been there and done that, okay? You probably think listening to this, wow, there are hundreds of people probably clamoring for Gruffy's attention. Hundreds of people with random ideas that are all crazy and just insane. So you then decide not to give feedback, or you decide not to pitch an idea, or you decide not to make a comment, or you think that you're not important enough to make a comment, or that it won't count. This is the mindset of a lot of people that listen to shows, because they assume that they'll just be at the bottom of the pile and there's no point doing it. However, when you run a show like this, the amount of people that actually want to respond and get involved is massive, but the amount of people that actually do it is tiny. And anyone who does this, who does contribute, trust me, it means the world to those people who are creating the content. So if you have any feedback on anything that they're doing, just reach out and tell them. Seriously, okay? I don't know what it's like for other commentators or YouTube channels or podcasts that you've interacted with in the past. Okay, forget that. This is different, okay? Community grows by community input, and you are important. So you, listening right now, yes, you. No, don't look up. I'm not in the room with you, but listen. Honestly, it does count, okay? So feedback on this stuff, please.
Yeah, first and foremost, what the Fluffenhammer is about community. It's getting people together to talk about things in a like-minded and pleasant manner. There is no... I don't have time for shouting and screaming. It's not worth effort. I'm an old man, and I don't have the energy to deal with it. And what the Fluffenhammer has ended up being is a very calm, collected sort of people who like to get together and talk about stuff. And this pleases me. So thank you to all of you guys. And I think then with that, it's time to shut it down. So I'm going to go press off the big off switch. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. White.
Thank you for bringing me out of retirement. I've almost realised how this podcast thing works.
And thank you very much.
Hey, by the way, do I have to edit this show now?
No, I'm doing that. It's fine.
Oh, yes! Yes! Thank you.
Oh, I'm leaving. Bye.
Revenge is mine, Gruffy.